Hey, what's up, fellas? Koi Maru here, and welcome to a game called Trail of Stars. Now, Trail of Stars is a game I really want to play because it just came out kind of recently, and it's made by the same creator who made It Paints Me and Portrait of a Ghost, and I really love those games. If you haven't seen them, I'd highly recommend go watching them. Not before this one. I mean, it's not like these aren't connected stories in any way, but I would highly recommend go watching them just because they're amazing games. This one in particular, Trail of Stars, is a game about a noble taking two squires along with him, a girl and a boy. And I believe it's like kind of a somber, like kind of painful romance, like the other ones, but a lot deeper in horror, I believe. So yeah, I will also show the content warnings. I didn't want to like just throw you into the game without you knowing anything. So this story with main character implied to be a victim of sexual harassment and grooming. Both main characters are implied to have suffered abuse, bullying, and trauma. Mentions of blood, violence, and death, alcohol use, suggestive themes, and off-screen animal death. Just a warning if you haven't seen this. All right, so let's go. The first time her master invited her to hunt, she demurred. My lord, I have nothing to wear. I can possibly join your noble companions, not companionship. Not 3 days later, after morning drills, she found a Red Riding habit, complete with fitted doublet and long satin kirtle placed carefully by her pillow. A note scrawled on perfumed paper read, "A gift for a thoughtful girl." She tore up the notes and threw its scraps to the fire, and thought about throwing the kirtle in as well. The boy she loved walked in to see it still gripped tight, claw-like, in her hands. What happened? Why do you smell like perfume? Look, a gift from your thoughtful father. She laughed, then choked, then turned from him in shame. A chill swept over his demeanor in an instant. He took the fabric from her hands and threw the garments aside. What did he ask of you? To go hunting with him. What else? She shook her head. She knew his mind was already churning. We'll go hunting with him. Nothing else need happen. She sat and hugged her knees, let him sit beside her as she stared into the flames. She tried to put all thought of it from her mind in the days that followed. But the image of that fabric, the color of spilt blood lying on her blankets, lingered like a stain. Already starting off very heavy. As I said, this is going to be a pretty heavy story, I believe, but still, I'm here for it. Hoof beats fell on a shaded forest trail. They trotted along behind the main party. She on a chestnut stallion, he on a white mare. She wore the red doublet. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right? It's not doublets, it's doublet, with its collar laced high. Though she'd swapped the kirtle for a pair of breeches and tall riding boots with silver spurs, she ignored the looks from the perfumed ladies sitting side saddle who laughed and tittered like exotic birds. Their servants carried crossbows engraved with doves and roses, flasks of drinks, and long-winged tip spears. She had a black short bow and quiver strapped to her back, a hunting knife on her belt, a dagger in each boot, and another tucked beneath her doublet against her breast. Her hair was too short to bother with a braid. She let the gentle wind that swept through the trees tousle it as it pleased. Are you enjoying yourself? The boy called out to her as the party cantered ahead of them. She could hardly believe it, but she was. The day was pleasant, with the sigh of early spring and the soft sunlight that trickled through the leaves. She now knew what it was to train her bow on moving targets. Though the thrill had quickly faded, she let her arrows run as loose as the hares that fled them. Now she lagged behind purposefully to explore the wooded trails. The boy too seemed content to meander along with her. He'd brought with him a pouch filled with white pebbles from the castle courtyard and dropped them strategically to mark their path. He was always planning ahead, always thinking. So much so, he only ever had one eye on the present. I am, she said she, thanks to present company. And you? The mare tossed her mane and whined a reply instead. Her rider playfully urged her ahead until both pairs trotted side by side. He smiled a warm, tranquil smile, letting his guard down for just a moment. Just for her. Thanks to present company, he echoed. The forest around them was strange and wild. 1,000 new sounds and smells surrounded them. The calls of birds she had never heard before. The musk of flowers and ferns she could not name. The two of them had rarely stepped beyond the castle gates. She'd forgotten that there was indeed a world outside of it. Outside the grueling routine and constant vigilance and hostility of a place where neither of them belonged. Outside the cruelty of their high-born peers. Outside the disciplining of their teacher. A knight from a long lineage who found training an orphan girl taken in on a whim. And the boy resulting from one of his master's affairs beneath him. But none of that mattered now. Not at that moment. Not in that place. The woods were a refuge from an ever-present, ever-callous reality. A place where the unfamiliar was warm and welcoming. A place where secrets could be shared as freely as musings about the weather. In no safer sanctuary could they be uttered. Soon, they were indulging like they seldom had before, in laughter and childish games. A truth or dare? She asked on a whim. Truth, he replied cautiously. Oh, wow, there's actually, choices. Let's save here. Also, I'm sorry, just gotta give it a thing. This game has some absolutely beautiful, like, just menu, just a really beautiful looking menus. They're stylized. Let's see. Because this is a multiple ending game, I believe. I'm curious between these ones. Let's see if there's someone you admire. Is there someone you admire? Yes. Whom? That wasn't part of the question. Wait. Your turn. What's your deepest fear? I was going to choose a dare. And I dare you to tell me. To be alone, to be nothing. To be alone? It's interesting that one's red and one's white. I don't know if that means anything or it's just stylized. We'll say to be nothing. To die accomplishing nothing. To face my parents when I crossed the sunless sea with little to show for their sacrifice. To leave behind naught that proved I ever existed. Have no fear then. You leave your mark already. What do you mean? Up ahead, commotion rang out from the trees. She imagined her master spotting a doe in the brush and taking aim with his fine crossbow, closing one rapacious rim blue eye, and letting the bolts fly. The hounds woofed and howled. The horses in the distance whined as the hunter spurred them into chase. How gallant you are to pursue something that can't hope to deny you. Reluctantly, she tugged on her stallion's reins. We should regroup with the others. He nodded and guided his mare back to the path, following the trail of snow-white teardrops that led to the place where a chorus of hungry voices sang. Child, come and make your first kill, her master called from the corpse ahead. The boy's jaw set into a grimace as he met her eyes. She broke his gaze in that instant, pierced by a sudden stab of shame. She knew him for his calm expressions, his subdued smiles and gentle grace, but moments would always come, like now, when it frightened her to stare back at his cool, deep-blued, rime-blue eyes. Though he kept his hair long and loose instead of cropped and tamed, though he wore simple clothes instead of fine furs, though he was gentle and pious and everything his sire was not, the boy she loved was still her master's blood. It was her gut to know that the eyes whose gaze she dared not meet was identical to the one she wanted to trace every inch of her. Once more her master called. She raised her head to look at the boy she loved. His windswept hair framed his face like a shroud. His hands clutched his reins so tightly. His knuckles were stark white. His gentle blue eye, wide as the moon. It stared at her, bored into her, pleading. I cannot do what my father asks of me, but worse will come if I disobey him. Her master called again, a third and final time. Then I will do it. I'll race you there, she said, and spurred her steed on. She galloped past, leaving him behind on the shaded trail. This is like, You can imagine where this might be going, depending on their plans. Which is kind of fair, honestly. The party retired that night to a feast of wine and venison. meat. Her master bade her drink with him. She had not the courage to refuse. He had her seated at his right, and his son, in a rare display of acknowledgement, at his left. Both dipped their heads ostensibly in reverence. Neither felt joy at the honor. "A fine effort from a fine new huntress," he said as he devoured the flesh of her kill. She thought about slitting his throat with her hunting knife and watching his blood spill like wine, staining his satin doublet and fine black furs. She imagined crushing his skull beneath her long riding boots, flecks of blood coating her heels and shiny silver spurs. She indulged in her fantasies as freely as her master did his goblet. In the firelight, her ruddy hair and red riding habits glowed like a flame. She watched the embers lick the sky, her eyes lit bright as a wolf's in the dark. She dared not meet the boy's rime-blued one, staring at her from across the chasm of their master's mountainous shadow. Oh, when at last the moon rose high and the fire drew low, she excused herself. The boy followed her. She acknowledged him with a casual nod, but did not meet his gaze. Okay, the two of them stood silently, watching the lonesome sky above the wood. He had hardly spoken a word all evening. Now, he said, "How can I be like you?" She finally turned to face him. "What do you mean? How am I to be a knight?" "You've a mind for tactics, and your swordplay is second only to mine," she teased. "How am I to kill?" He didn't answer. She didn't want to think the words. When there is something you abhor with every fiber of your being, when the choice is to bloody your hands or be consumed whole. When you have no choice, when there's something you must protect. We'll say it again here. We'll say when there's something you must protect. When you have something to protect, she finally said. A pretty thought, one that might soothe a chivalrous heart. But the boy she loved was not a child any longer, and neither was she. His name day was 2 moons past. Hers would arrive with the dawn. "I do, and yet," he trailed off with a sigh. He hardly ever breathed without thinking it over twice. Sometimes his thoughts entangled in his own mind so deeply, his true feelings could never be free. Not unless she cut them loose like a string. The magic of the woods had run dry. The bows no longer sheltered them with their sanctuary. But the stars sparkled above, painting the night sky. It was no longer a time for games or secrets, but perhaps it'd be a time for dreams. What will we do when we become knights? She prodded him gently. A silly question. They would ride off to war in her master's name. They would kill, and they would suffer, and then they would die. Their arms and backs covered in scars. "Let me be your page, my lord." "You, a girl." "My treacherous and ignoble father was still a knight. He trained me as his heir. I can use a sword. I can fight." The choice between armor or rags seemed trivial back then, but now she knew they were the same. A life covered in blood or soiled in dirt is still a life in chains. "We'll go riding across the ice," he replied. "We'll find the names for every star. We'll joust in the golden city of the south at the king's named day tourney. You'll win without fail." He went on, listing dozens of beautiful and wondrous things that perhaps, deep within, some small sliver of him still dared dream of. She imagined him standing in steel and mail on a battlefield over corpses, iron and rust staining his armor. She imagined reaching toward him with a filthy gauntlet, dripping in red. Here, away from the firelight, she was not a knight or a huntress. She was small and broken once again. She was a feeble thing, hiding in her room against the door, listening for the tap, tap, tap of the secret knock they shared. "We'll do it all together." She shifted towards him, and he to her as she listened, but it was her own heartbeats in her ears, not his voice like warm velvet. It was so close now, She could see the moon's reflection in his rime blue eyes. She leant her head against the crook of his neck and closed her eyes, the way she had when they were children. His soft hair fell over her cheek and trailed down the collar of her blood-red riding habit. She imagined tearing it off, lace by lace, stripping off her knives, boots, breeches, and hose before him, meeting his mouth with hers as he tore her linen shift off her skin. His closeness broke the very last defenses of her mind and wine-loosened tongue. She let slip 3 careless words. And a spell that could never be unsaid was spoken. When I love you? Immediately he shifted away. Half of his face turned pale as the moon. I'm not worthy of you. You are. I'm a coward. You're not. My father condemned yours. You didn't choose to be his son. You can choose better. I choose you. I want you. Oh God, okay. Now we're getting into some very interesting choices, because again, this is multiple ending. So there is only 2 endings. So we're gonna have to probably go, if you're new here, then we always have to go for like the bad endings first. But again, the bad endings make it all worth it, because then we get a nice true ending to end it off. So we will say, I can't lose what we have. I need you by my side. Or whether you look at me the same way I look at you matters not. I need you to look at me still. Don't turn away, please. He stared at her in silence. She looked for anything, any sound she could make to shatter it. The small clatter did. His pouch string had come undone. A single pebble slipped and rolled to the ground at her feet. He knelt to pick it up. It twinkled white as a star. Not thinking, she reached towards him, perhaps to help him up. For a moment, her hand flashed red as rust in her mind's eye. She stopped, as if she might irreparably stain him if she touched him. But then he lifted his head, looked into her eyes, took her fingers into his, and, raising her hand, brought it to his lips. Oh? She was petrified. A chast kiss. He felt anything but. Oh, we actually like art of how the characters look. That's actually really cool looking. Brought heat to her cheeks. She felt as scarlet as her riding clothes. Her lips lingered. His lips, not her lips. His lips lingered on her hand. His breath warm and gentle on the back of her fingers. His grip holding her firm, as if he might never let her go. She felt despair as if she were naked before him. She could not and would now never be able to hide the claws that had killed in his name. She pulled away. Instantly, the spell that transfixed them was broken. She didn't know what to do. What she wanted. That single touch was both too much and not enough. Not nearly enough. She could not stand another moment before the dizzying gaze of his rim blue eyes. She turned and dashed away into the night, the cape of her red riding habit billowing like scarlet wings. He called after her, her childhood name, the way he always did when she was sick or afraid. I always be so small and frail in your eyes. Frail and weak, a thing you have to protect. The moon glistened above them as the boy who loved her ran to her side. Reaching for her hand he had kissed. His pouch of white pebbles spilling behind him like a trail of stars. Really freaking beautiful art. My God, this might be the best art we've had. Jeez, this is awesome looking. And that is one ending. Now, if you are into romance, well, who isn't into romance a little bit? Let's do the ending that we all want to see. I want you to want me to. I need you as much as I need the blood in my veins and the beats in my heart. You're all I have and all I want. Tell me you feel the same way, please. He stared at her in silence. She looked for anything, any sound she could make to shatter it. We'll skip ahead a little bit. There we go. I think that was all the same. Oh crap, oh crap. Yeah, a single touch was both too much when he kissed her hand. She pulled him close as he rose and took her in his arms. Her chest felt tight, the knife tucked beneath her doublet jutted against her ribcage. She closed her eyes and saw bloody handprints cover the throats and face of the boy who loved her. He held her head against his chest. Strands of his hair fell once more over her cheek. Remnants of iron and wine lingered on his breath, staining her skin. Her face burnt like a brand. With his bare fingers, he stroked her ruddy hair. In the fading light of a dying fire, her locks were as red as freshly spilled blood. She would remember that day for many reasons, but most solemn of them all, it was the first time she had ever killed for him. It would not be the last. But for now, in that moment, burning in each other's arms, they were safe. Dang. You can imagine the implication of that she likely did end up, like this ending, she probably likely did end up killing this guy's father, I'm assuming. Which is fair, because I mean, I'm sure you can tell from the warnings at the beginning and the way that it was like shown that there was some stuff going on with her and the father that she wasn't consenting to, obviously. Oh, that's really cool. This title screen before, when I got the other ending, it was like silhouettes of them. But then when you actually get like when you get that ending where they kind of love each other actually, or like admit their feelings to each other, you get the ending where you can actually see how they look. That was a really beautiful short like visual novel, honestly. And typically I don't play just like romance like ever. Like I typically kind of play like horror-ish romance, or at least like stuff where like a Portrait of a Ghost and It Paints Me. It was very horror type of romance. This was just like an actual pretty beautiful love story, and I'm actually quite a fan of it because I'm a sucker for romance. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Who doesn't love rom-coms? Clannad was one of the best animes of all time. Anyway, that's off topic. This game right here was absolutely beautiful. Like, it was very short, but the arts alone in the game like made it so amazing. And this is his the creator's newest project. I really loved it, I have to say. Like, man. Oh, I mean, again, I only wish it was longer, but of course, I mean, the game was so beautiful that, I mean, I only wish it was longer so it could last longer, because I was a big fan of these characters. And the thing is also interesting, I was a big fan of these characters, and their names have never been said in this entire game. I don't think they ever actually said these characters' names. You see the gallery of everything. But yeah, these, we don't know who they are. It was literally just said like the girl and the boy. So it really just shows how compelling they can write their stuff. Anyway, I won't talk you off for too long. I do hope you guys sincerely enjoy Trail of Stars. I sincerely appreciate you for watching, and farewell for now.